Cali X Boxing here. It is hump day. We got a special guest here once again, Michael Montero. Appreciate you coming through, man. It's always exciting when you come through.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
So,
And I got D-Style Boxing here as always. And I just some hot topics I wanted to hit on too, and overall too, just the state of the American boxing media. I wanted to speak on that as well. First of all, Michael, I didn't know you have a professional fight coming up. Is that right? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, so I haven't talked really about this too much publicly. I've been trying to keep it quiet just to focus. So I won't say too much, but I got my pro license back in April. And so the plan was to do like 3 or 4 pro fights over the summer. Unfortunately, they keep getting canceled, postponed, opponents keep pulling out. So we got another one scheduled coming up. I'm hoping it works out because I've been grinding like in camp since May 1st, sparring hard, training hard, got my body fat down, just everything, I'm ready to go. And they just keep getting canceled on me. So I'm going to give it one more push for September. There's a fight card in September that I've been invited to fight on. My wife is pregnant and due in October. So after that, I'm definitely going to be on lockdown for a while. So
yeah,
hopefully
that's
I can
beautiful
make it
though, man. Like, is that you just pushing yourself? Is that what it is? Like trying to get the best out of yourself? Because I know how it is balancing stuff with the family. Is this just you trying to push yourself to see how far you can go?
Yeah, I mean, I've trained for a long time and I've done several amateur fights. I did 6 amateur fights. So my brother's death is what inspired me to finally get in the ring. That was a few years ago. So for the last few years, I've been living as a competitive fighter, fighting amateur. But I decided earlier this year to try to go pro and do a few fights professional just to kind of finish this chapter and then move on with the next chapter of my life, being a father, being a husband, all that. Because I got a feeling once we have that second baby, man, I don't know if I could train anymore, bro. It's so much, man. I'm dealing with, my baby is 9 months old, and then I have a pregnant wife. I have 2 jobs. I have a house. I have a grass to cut, all this shit. And I'm having to get up and go train and spar and do it. It's a lot, man. And my family's having to sacrifice. So yeah, I figured like I've come this far, man. Let's just finish this thing. Let's, and see how far we can take it. Obviously, I'm not fighting for a championship or, it's going to be a 4-rounder undercard fight. I'm not trying to make it sound more important than it is, but for me and my family, it's a big deal. It's something for us to kind of rally behind. My mom's having health problems. I don't know how much longer she's going to be with us. We lost my brother recently. We lost my cousin this summer. We lost my grandmother this summer. There's a lot that my family's been through lately. And so like, I'm just trying to do something positive for my family to like cheer for and celebrate. You know what I mean?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Let me ask you this, because it's going to tie into what we're talking about later. When did you start covering boxing? Just the genesis of it. When did you start covering boxing? Around what year?
So like I blogged about boxing and wrote on those free sites going back like probably 20 years, 15, 20 years ago. But I moved to LA in 2009 for work. I was relocated out there. And I kind of just found my way. I was hanging out at gyms, training, working with dudes, and they'd be like, man, your shit. And eventually I got put on to, I had no idea what a press credential was. I mean, I have no background in that field, no education in that field. But a guy that I trained with, he was friends with a fighter on the Los Angeles Matadors, which was the semi-pro, World Series of Boxing thing that they were doing for a while. LA had a team, and he's like, hey man, you should work press for these fights and, cover my boy they were both from Houston, I think, same hometown. And he was like, you can, there was a Houston newspaper that I can get you credentialed through, and you can like cover him in his fights for this paper. And I was like, well, okay, shit. Because I was going to the fights anyway. And now I'm like sitting ringside and I'm writing about it. And I just kind of worked my way up from that, man. And throughout all the 2010s, I was out there in LA. And LA is the mecca of boxing in America right now. It has over 100 gyms. It's the best gym scene in the world. And the new boxing media, I hate those terms like old media, new media. I'm not saying it the way the YouTube guys mean it. I'm just saying the the bulk of the boxing press right now is in LA and like the greater Southwest area. If you include Vegas in that, that's where the gyms are. That's where the trainers are. That's where the media is. So I was in the middle of all that. And I met some wonderful people, and some people took me under the wing as mentors and kind of showed me the ropes. And I just kind of worked my way into it, man. So as a serious member of the media, if you will, I use that word loosely, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to get to is, what do you think is the biggest change in the boxing media today, American boxing media, from 10 years ago? Because how I see it, there have been two big changes in the past, let's say 30 years. Okay. It's the YouTube era when that started, early 2000s. That changed the way people put out content and gave people more access. But then the smartphone and social media significantly changed it. And I would say it's been a net negative, just my opinion on that, on how the sport is covered. But what's your viewpoint on that? How have you seen the media change the past decade in big ways? And has this been more of a positive, negative, a mixture?
I guess it's a mixed bag, but I would say in the last 5 years, particularly since COVID, it is fell off precipitously, man. You know, a lot of fans don't realize this, but you know, you go back just 20 years and guys that we know now as A-listers had trouble getting credentialed because they were internet press. Guys like Steve Kim, Doug Fisher would struggle to get credentialed. You know, I think they were writing for Max Boxing, and then there was a site before Max Boxing. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they couldn't get credentialed, or if they did, they were up in the bleachers because the promoters at that time were like, we want the newspaper guy down here by the ring. We want USA Today down here, you know, that sort of thing. So those guys couldn't get respect. Then the internet media took over and became the foundation. And now what is called old media is sites like ringtv.com, Boxing Scene. Like that's considered like legacy media. Just 20 years ago, those guys are struggling to get credentialed. That's the reality. But now what's happened is, to your point, it's the YouTube media and the podcasters and stuff. They've kind of taken over to a point where they're getting more clicks. Some of these YouTube channels are getting significantly more clicks and more traffic and making money because they can monetize it than literal boxing sites.
They're not the fringe. People make a mistake. They're not the fringe.
They're not the fringe. And here's where I will blame some of the American boxing establishment for this, because they've placated to some of these people. And now we can get into the whole conspiracy thing and the glove gate and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I feel like 10, 15 years ago, a lot of these promoters would have nothing to do with those channels. If they saw and heard some of the things going on, they wouldn't even deal with them. But now you have literally network executives sitting in on Twitter Spaces, talking about racist shit and anti-Semitic shit and crazy conspiracy theories, throwing out accusations of performance-enhancing drug, completely baseless conspiracy theories. And there's network executives joining in on those chats. I'm sure you know where I'm going with that. Yeah. And those are the same guys attacking you on Twitter last week. I saw that shit. So like I blame those guys for dumbing down this thing, Jerry Springering this shit in recent years, because now the juice, the power is with some of these guys that just, yeah, see, I saw some of the names there. They're being mentioned in the chat. Like, I'm not going to mention these names, but you guys know who they are.
Yeah, but I think, look, here's my issue. Yes, there's those guys, and look, myself and Calix actually, but me, I've been on YouTube like since 2009. I want to say.
Yeah, but you're a good YouTuber.
You know?
I mean, there's some. I'm sorry to cut you off, brother, but there's a distinction. But there are people on YouTube doing great work that I enjoy listening to, and there are people doing crazy shit. Unfortunately, who's getting the ratings? Who's getting the views?
We know who is, but what I'm trying to get at is this: that there's also, though, like here on YouTube, there is some there's a lot of boxing fans, like real boxing fans, that I gotta be honest, got tired of the old media, and they don't fuck with none of this new shit either, right? The reason people got on YouTube to talk boxing because we weren't happy with what we were hearing and looking at, like like there was nothing out there for us. We felt right, but you are right as far as like there's been like a new kind of wave of if you want to call it new media, like the Dante's Boxing Nations, for example, right? They get these crazy numbers. They do, right? But I don't even know the main way to deal with that. It's my opinion. They get a lot of hate watchers. A lot of people watch them and then they come complain to me about them, and it's like,
absolutely,
why are you guys in the chat even mentioning these dudes? Like, well, why are you giving it? Because well, did he hear what this guy said and the LWC said that? And
right.
Why are you giving them your views then? Why are you over there watching them? Right? Because they have their supporters and then they get the hate views as well. Right?
I think they get more hate views. Honestly, they get more troll because it's the same thing with a lot of my followers. They'll be like, "Yo, you see that?" They'll forward it to me. They'll DM it to me. They'll tweet it to me, and I'm like, I don't want to see that shit. I just ignore those people. You know.
Does that work either though? Because my view on that is, if you ignore them, we did that for years, and then they just keep growing. There's no pushback to.
We need to be. Look, this is what you need to do. Okay. You don't pussyfoot around the stupid retarded shit. You just call it out, right? Like Lovegate was stupid and it was easy to call out, right? But the reality is I could be talking about anything. I could be talking about Floyd Mayweather Crawford, a hypothetical matchup, and there's dudes complaining and bitching about the LDPC in my chat. Like, what do they have to do with what we're talking about at the moment? Like, oh, LOL, Glovegate. We're not even talking about that right now. I think it's like that passage in the Bible. There's a time. There's a time for everything, okay? Yeah. There's a time for peace, a time for war, a time to, whatever, right? At the end of the day, call out the bullshit. Call out the stupid narratives that are out there. Like Glovegate was called out heavily by a lot of YouTubers, right? That also get a lot of good views, right? And there are a lot of good YouTubers that cover boxing, that do good, that aren't out here spreading propaganda and aren't out here spreading narratives. And the reason I'm saying this is because there is a lot of power in, like me, I don't need credentials and I don't need the approval of PBC. I don't need Espinosa's approval. I don't need Leonard Ellerby's approval. They have nothing on me. They can't strip anything from me. They can't take my livelihood from me. They can't take nothing from me. And there's a lot of YouTubers like that, right? And I do feel that the biggest pushback a lot of times is from YouTubers. I think there's a lot of good YouTubers and horrible YouTubers. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think, well, a couple things. So number one, and I saw somebody in the chat comment about this, but the boxing world in America is very small. There are a few 100,000 people that truly give a shit about this thing in America. Okay. There's millions of casual fans, but there's maybe 500,000 guys like us that talk about this shit week in and week out. It's a small world. So it's very, very difficult when you have this loud contingent that's getting all this noise. It's hard to ignore them. It's hard not to hear it because it's such a small place, but I'm with you in terms of the timing. So last week I trolled hard on Twitter with the Errol Spence people, and not Errol Spence himself. He deserves nothing but credit. He was a fucking warrior, and he fought his ass off against Bud. He was just in there with a much better fighter. That was it. So I ain't mad at Errol, but it was Errol's protectors in the media, his management, the people that delayed that fight for 5 years and tried to delay it this year. People are forgetting they tried to fight Thurman this year, and that blew up, okay? They were trying to delay this shit 6 years. And they were trying to tell us that fights with Mikey, Danny, Ugas, Porter, Keith were just as big as the fight with Crawford and pay-per-view worthy. That was coming from that one platform and their protectors, and that includes those YouTube channels. So I had to have fun with that. Had to call that shit out, because if we don't call it out, they're just going to keep lying to people. But it's been a week. And now it's time to let it go and move on, because now they're already changing. They're already moving the goalpost. Now it's Tank got to fight. Inoue's got to fight Tank. and Inoue is doing performance enhancing drugs and shit. Now it's like they're finding the new thing. It's the same play. This is what I've been tweeting all day today. It's the same play over and over and over with these people. The same fucking thing. And I ain't mad at Floyd for doing it. Espinoza. I ain't even mad at those guys. They're capitalists taking advantage of morons to make money. I get it. What I don't understand is the fans, because you're the ones being ripped off.
Yeah.
We had to wait 5 years for the welterweight Super Bowl. We know in 2018 that the welterweight Super Bowl, the best fight you could make at 147 was Crawford and Spence. We knew then we had to wait 5 years. So who gets fucked? The fans. Yet there are fans co-signing this shit and repeating the cycle. That's what I don't understand.
And it happened before already, is this troubling part with Mayweather Pacquiao.
How about Wilder not fighting anybody?
Look, I made a video.
Fury. That was a cherry pick gone wrong.
Yes.
Look, I made a video here on YouTube. I'm sure College remembers this video about what's boxing needs checks and balances. I did this like 7 years ago, right?
It was
no one knows a role, and no one plays it. Like, fans don't understand. We have way too many boxing fans. That's all you are, fan. A lot of content creators on here, you're fans. You're not insiders. You're not in the business. You're fans. That's what you are. I'm a fan. That's all I am. A proud fan. I'm not ashamed of saying that, right? But the problem is fans don't know how to be fans. We're supposed to be the demand. We're supposed to say, we want those two motherfuckers to fight. Get that fucking fight done. What fans shouldn't do is, no, but that doesn't make sense for him. I mean, will you do that? If I was in his shoes, I wouldn't do it. Okay, well, what does that mean? But you're not in his shoes.
You're talking like a promoter.
Yeah, you're talking like a manager and a promoter all at once. Like, fans, you need to remember that you're fans, and it's it's a non-starter as soon as fans start talking like managers and promote. It's a non-starter, right? Because now you're doing their job for them. Not if you empathize with like Progress last week or a couple of days ago, we talked about it. He's posting about all don't be careful when you criticize fighters for not making weight. We go through a lot. Look how I suffered. I don't give a fuck, bro. I know that sounds harsh, but I don't give a shit. Ain't nobody forced you to be a pro boxer. If you don't want to, if it's too hard, if it's too dangerous for you, go work out in the hot sun in the roof like I used to do. Go do that. I didn't look for pity for that, right? I almost got heat stroke a couple times. I didn't go around saying, "Oh man, this is really hard." Don't complain when your roofs aren't done on time. Like it's just boxers need to stop with this shit. Stop looking for sympathy from fans, bro.
In that particular case, he's benefiting from draining himself as being the bigger fighter at the weight fighters do. So you got to take the good and the bad. Yeah, you got to take the good and the bad.
It's that dangerous then.
Yeah, move up to 147.
But that's just a microcosm of like everything, though. We're living in a weird era where they want to shame boxing fans, right, for being fans of the sport. Like if you ask my grandmother hates the sport. She thinks the sport shouldn't exist. She doesn't understand why we get pleasure in watching two men beat each other up. Like, she doesn't understand it. It's a violent sport. We understand we know it's dangerous. But it's a sport where we all cheer and go, oh, fuck, when the dude gets knocked the fuck out unconscious. It is what it is, right? It's a blood sport. Like, that's what we're watching. Now, I'm not saying we can't be empathetic about the struggles of fighters. That's not what I'm saying at all, right? But I saw a dude, okay, like not that long ago, say something like, he's like, oh, boxing fans, they just want to see exciting fights because they want these fighters to end up punch drunk and they don't want them to leave the sport and take care of their family. Who said that? Is that a thing? So you don't want exciting fights then, ever? By that logic, none of them should be boxers then because something bad could happen to them. All right? I don't know. It's whatever to me, but
let me get to the super chat real quick. Nando Yamas 499 super chat 100 D style. Old boxing media is wonderful for creating cocoons, boogeymen, flawed narratives among groupthink, prematurely anointed boxer, and that seems to be across the board, old media, new media, and I'm struggling to figure out who's old media, new media at this point.
Yeah,
becoming blurrier.
Really
Let me
good.
get to this real quick because I wanted to talk about this. Floyd Mayweather on Inoue. Even though he got the victory over Stephen Fulton, open quote, Fulton is not a heavy puncher. Donaire was giving him fits, blah, blah, blah. If I'm not mistaken, blah, blah, blah. All right. So what I need Inoue to do, this is the pull quote. What I need Inoue to do, what I need Inoue to do is to come and fight in the USA. Random blood and urine testing. I think he's a hell of a fighter. Yeah, sure you do. He takes a lot of stuff from my playbook. Of course he does, because everybody does, right? But it's okay. You're supposed to take from the greats. Okay. I would like to see him fight Gervonta Davis at a catch weight. This stuff is hilarious to me because it's so on brand, and it goes back to what you were just talking about.
Like, could it be narcissistic and
it's everything comes back to him always, but it's always drug testing again, urine testing.
For
he
certain
needs
fighters.
to come to America.
He's a passive aggressive narcissist dude. That's what he is.
What's your overall take on that quote, that paragraph right there, Michael?
That's just Floyd doing again the same play over and over and over, and I'm not even mad at him anymore. If you just read between the lines, has he ever accused an American fighter of performance enhancing drugs? Did he ever say fighter X from America, he should take random blood and urine testing? It's always guys from Asia, Europe, Latin America. It's the same play. And it's always a us versus them dynamic that he creates, because that's who he appeals to, people that love that shit and they buy into it. And so now you got Gervonta Davis. Look, there are a dozen fighters from 130 to 140 that would be the best opponent of his career by far. That we can name a dozen easy. That would be the best opponent of his career. And he's calling out a guy who started at 108 and just had his first fight at 122. And accusing him of doing performance enhancing drugs in a way we can go in a time machine. It's a lot of the same shit he said about Manny Pacquiao. Right?
Who did this interview with Floyd?
Fight Hype.
Hype.
I just said the name. I shouldn't have said that.
Floyd Hype.
Yeah. But see, there's an example. He goes to that platform because they're going to give him an opportunity to say what he wants to say with no pushback.
It's a barter.
Yeah,
because Michael Benson just quotes it and tweets it to get clicks on his Twitter profile.
I was going to say a real journalist would have immediately said, Floyd, he does do random testing already.
Well, see, but Floyd, he blacklists real journalists from covering his fighters. So I covered several Gervonta Davis fights ringside, and for Ring Magazine. I did a feature piece on Gervonta, talked to his whole team, talked to Leonard Ellaby, talked to Steven Espinoza. Everything went great. And they didn't like the fact that in that piece, at the very end, I included a little paragraph of it's time for him to step up and face elite level opposition, especially if he's going to be fighting on pay-per-view. Now, this goes back a few years. They blacklisted Ring from covering Gervonta Davis fights. They wouldn't let Ring in. We still covered his fights. We'd just write about it on the site and stuff like that. We'd still actually cover them, but they would not credential Ring to cover his fights. Now that might be over with now. I don't know if it is or not, honestly, but that's an example of someone doing their job, okay, and being fair and speaking for the fans, and they get blacklisted. And I should mention this. Before I ever got involved in media, and I dabble in media, I'm not a full-timer, especially now that I have a family. I turned down 90% of the work I get offered this year. But I was a super fan of the sport. So I come to it from that point of view. I don't come to it from a corporate point of view or an academic point of view. There are guys in the legacy press like Doug Fisher, who's a very educated, articulate man. He comes from it from an academic point of view, right? And then there are guys like Mike Coppinger who come from a corporate, almost Hollywood kind of point of view. Yeah, those are the guys. I came from a fan point of view, kind of like a Steve Kim, with that kind of viewpoint, because that's where Steve came from into this thing. So I'm always going to take the side of the fans first, and that's why I speak up against bullshit where I see it. Some people are cool with it. Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, those guys, I've gone I've battled with them. I've battled with ESPN, DAZN. If I need to get a Matchroom fighter on the phone right now, it's done. If I need to get a Top Rank guy on the phone, done. Mauricio Suleiman, I shit on him all the time. I can call Mauricio right now. He'll answer the phone. Because those guys get it. Those guys get it. Criticism is part of the game. That's part of it.
This is what I talked about Monday. It's the difference. I can say what I say about Eddie, and Eddie will comment back sometimes, like with the humorous comment, wink. I'll see you in New Orleans for the pro grade fight, something like that. I got Top Rank people who follow me. They don't care when I say something negative about Top Rank. Golden Boy, the same thing. For whatever reason. For whatever reason. When you say something about Al's company or any of his fighters, oh my God. Or Showtime, oh my God. And then people think you're a PBC hater because it's magnified times 1,000 because you're getting these battles.
I honestly believe a lot of these dudes, a lot of these guys that come attack, like they're just a bunch of losers, bro. And it makes their day when Leonard Allerby quote tweets them. It puts 100, like, you know what I mean? Or yeah, that's right. They'll never understand. Like Leonard, like you just quote tweeted like a fucking troll with like 17 followers. Like what?
Right.
What are you doing? You know what I mean? Yeah. Just because he said something you like, you know, like it doesn't matter to me, man. At the end of the day, all right. I've criticized a lot of members of the media, including Steve Kim. Steve Kim doesn't have a problem with me, right? I've criticized a lot of people. I've criticized Doug Fisher before. Like I didn't attack them personally. That's different, right? But if I disagree with if Michael Montero, he's right here. If he says something I disagree with, I'm going to say I think you're wrong, Michael. Like that's if I think you say something that I just flat out don't agree with, I'll just say it. Like that's perfectly normal, right?
It's healthy. It's good.
Yeah, but like Tank Davis does need to step up. Take the fucking diapers off already, okay? Get him off the training wheels. It's time.
How is that?
Dude, how long is he going to be on the PBC tit? Like, for how long?
Dude, it's unreal. And this is why it's the easiest example to use. And that's why I brought up the pull
PBC
quote.
Got to do
earlier.
like.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is expectations are what you really believe, what you really think of a fighter, right? So they're expecting Inoue to move up, whatever the catch weight's going to be, right? I mean, they'll make the catch weight 134,
134 and a half. Yeah.
And you come to USA, even though you can make $1 quadrillion over in Japan, and then you agree to whatever. God only knows what kind of drug testing they want to do, but Inoue has to do all of this stuff. And then Tank, we can't even ask of him to fight a top 2 or 3 guy in his weight class, in his very own weight class.
Because he beats them all, Alex. Every time I say, oh, he'll beat him anyway. Right? Oh, he'll beat him anyway. And pun intended, but not anyway. Anyway, we have to see that one. Right?
You mentioned Ellerby. I saw Ellerby tweeted something today where he was talking about Margarito. And he said, y'all said he was the boogeyman and he got beat up by Mosley. Floyd didn't need to fight him. And that's another play that they do.
Yeah.
If a guy keeps fighting top guys, he's eventually going to lose. And that's what they want. They want the guy to wait him out, hope he loses. And then they can say, well, we didn't need to fight him. He just lost. He ain't undefeated. And again, I go back to the fans. You're the ones enabling this shit. You are the ones enabling these fucking whack job YouTube channels. And you're the ones enabling the promotion. And I'm going to call it the boxing establishment because people don't understand. Independent media is where the juice is right now, but corporate media is still extremely powerful. There are a lot of inroads and connections between certain boxing platforms, their parent companies, which are huge, and these corporate media entities, right? They're all intertwined. And that old school legacy media, BWAA, that stuff's all intertwined. If you keep allowing these guys to run this grift, they're going to keep doing it. Why would they change anything? So the power is with the fans to start saying, nah, I don't want to see Gervonta Davis fight Isaac Cruz again. I don't want to pay $80 for that. Fuck you. I'm not going to the fight. I'm not buying it. Make him fight Shakur Stevenson. I'll pay $80 for that. Once the fans all get behind each other, we should be supporting each other, not beefing with each other. We are the ones who should be coming together, right? And so once that happens, then the industry will change. But until it happens, it won't.
That's the brainwashing campaign, right? Is to pit people against each other from
Of
different
course.
bases. And then as
Look
you're
at
busy
politics.
fighting, we can continue to do what we do. But I'll ask these dudes, I'll say, and I talked about this the other day, I'll say, why can't Tank fight Devin now? Because Devin doesn't have a fight yet, and they're saying on the same timeline, they'll throw out stuff like he was in prison, they couldn't do business or stuff like that. You know the drill. But I'll ask him, okay, what do you want to see now? Okay, let's see Devin fight Prograis. T.O. has fought Josh Taylor, and then T.O. can fight the winner of Devin versus Prograis, and then the winner of that can fight Tank. And I'll say, wait a second, wait 1 second. So what is the Tank Davis bracket of this tournament you've concocted? And they'll say his bracket is he fights Isaac Cruz. And I'm saying, how is that fair? These dudes got to go through a gauntlet. And then they get the privilege to fight Tank, right? They get the privilege at the very end for Tank to pop up after these guys beat each other up. And then we have to hope that Tank fights the fight.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, guys.
It's true.
Whether we like it or not, right? Like the public, I'm not going to say the boxing fan. People blame the boxing fans a lot for shit, but like it's really the public at large have rewarded fights like Tank versus, like, just think about it. We live in a world where Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis sold far more than Lomachenko Haney. And we as boxing fans, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think you agree. Loma Haney was a superior fight. It was a better fight.
In every way.
Right. So like, yet it wasn't rewarded by the public. Crawford Spence looks like it did great numbers, but it didn't do Garcia Tank numbers. Right. And as long as the public at large, like even like personalities like Stephen A. Smith, reward Tank and act like Tank is doing everything great, right? But then they speak out about every little thing Canelo does. You know what I mean? As long as that's the culture, there's really no incentive, right, from their perspective, from the Tank side, to take any risk against any tough opponents, because the model they've been using has worked, right? The heist worked. Like they robbed the bank. Like whether we like it or not, they got through, right? You know, but it doesn't mean I need to like it, you know. But here's the reality that Leonard Allerby and all those dudes need to understand. You could break all the pay-per-view records. You could break the the Pacquiao Mayweather record, but if you don't beat a champion, I'm not going to call you a champion, because you're not a champion. You're just a very popular boxer, but you're not a champion, and we're not going to pretend you're a champion, right? And I think Leonard is very insecure about that. The Tank side is very insecure about people pointing out that they're not a real champion, that they've accomplished nothing, like of substance, I should say, right? But financially, I mean, they're making money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think, and I'll pose this question to both of y'all, do you think our expectations, I think we both agree our expectations of American fighters have significantly come down. And I would argue that our expectations of foreign fighters have not, because we're expecting more of them. And as we do that, I think we're going to have a natural gap close as we do that, because our expectations of fighters, I think they tend to live up or down to them. And I'll give you an example. We have 68 major belts in boxing. American boxers currently own 16 of those. 16. And that's counting like Jamal holding on to a belt without fighting for 800 days. That's counting some of these guys who are eventually going to get stripped, like Mel at 54 and Haney at 35. We currently have 16. And of those 16, 11 of those belts are held by 3 fighters. We currently only have 8 champions, real champions in American boxing.
Wow.
So, and we're in a state of boxing now where it's a unification era. It's an undisputed era. So 11 of those 16 belts are held by 3 fighters. This is a very
short answer. I'll give you a very short answer. Yes. Like our expectations are lower. And here's the thing. Ironically, if you listen to some other people out there, they're acting like things are unfair for the American fighter. Like They're acting like the American fighter isn't appreciated enough for what the American fighter is doing, and there's too much praise for the foreigners, for the foreign fighters, right? And people have come up with weak ass. There's channels here on YouTube that have said HBO fell apart because they started pushing fighters like Gennady Golovkin, and it weren't pushing the American fighter. I just know that's factually not true. I know why HBO fell, right? Like why boxing
to show that's not true.
Like it had nothing to do with the commentary or because they had Europeans on the network. It had nothing to do with that, right? But yeah, like our expectations are lower. What I will say, Calix, is that I don't know what to make about the total number of champions because boxing is a worldwide sport and the competition is just getting better all around the world. So like we're just gonna have to get used to that. Like we're not gonna be a dominant. We're not gonna have 50% of the belts. Like that's never gonna happen.
But we did for a long time, and I do think there is a certain element in the American boxing community, which includes members of the media, that are, I guess, freaking out is the term. They're scared. There's a xenophobia, and what's interesting, Calix, you mentioned. It's about 25% of the belts are held by Americans, roughly 25%, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at a lot of the pound for pound lists, there's a lot of American names on it. If you look at the guys making the most money, there's a lot of American names on it. So then we can start getting into terms like privilege, entitlement, things like that. And if you look at like Floyd's thing about Inoue has to travel to America. Well, Floyd, how many times did you leave America? How many times did you leave Nevada? I'm not talking about these exhibition fights. I'm talking about in your prime, where you basically ran the commission. You never left Nevada. Everyone had to come.
The testosterone levels were allowed a lot higher there too. I mean, maybe it's just a coincidence.
Well, he actually had low testosterone levels twice, and it wasn't followed up upon. I tweeted about that today. A lot of fans just simply don't know about that, especially the ones that say, "Oh, Manny Pacquiao was juicing." Oh, really? There's more circumstantial evidence pointing to Floyd than anything with Manny. Although some of Manny's choice of words were not good and made it look bad. But I would say this, thank goodness for the foreign fighters, because the guys right now from Latin America, Africa, Europe, the UK, Asia, they're the ones making the fights half the time. Yeah. They're the ones traveling. They're the ones going in these tournaments. They're the ones unifying belts a lot of the times. And stepping up and fighting the best in a weight class. If it wasn't for those guys, could you imagine where boxing would be right now?
Yeah.
I love my American fighters. And listen, I'm a proud American. I served in the Marine Corps. Okay. My favorite fighters of all time are Thomas Hearns, my hometown of Detroit. American fighters, right? I love my American fighters, but let's be real about this. If there's a group of fighters that are privileged right now and a group that's kind of being disenfranchised, it's pretty clear which is which.
We should be expecting more of them. We should be demanding more of them, and we'll get better return, and we'll get better fights, and we'll produce more stars. But that just us saying what we just said will be seen as hatred. It will be seen as hate.
It'll be seen as worse than that.
Yes,
it'll be the R word. They're going to throw the R word at that, even though there's zero racial context to it.
Yeah, I don't get it, man. All I could say is this, right? There's a lot of fans out there that they try, like, if you need to shame people to support fighters, like, if you need to tell me, like, hey, stop getting on Jamal. He's American, and you're American, so stop getting on the American. Like, nah, like,
Jeffrey Dahmer was American. Am I supposed to be cool with Jeffrey Dahmer? He was American too.
Yeah, like, I'm not just gonna support just because you're American. Like,
right?
Like, you know what I mean? It's not the way it works, bro. And the argument always is, well, look at the Philippines. They support Manny Pacquiao. Look at Japan. They support Inoue. But you know what? Stop acting like these countries treat American fighters like shit. Fulton was treated better in Japan than he's ever been treated by his own people in Philadelphia. So don't give me this crap that we're too nice over here to foreign fighters, and when they're more than nice to our fighters over there. All right, they're very nice to our fighters over there. American fighters are treated very good when they leave the country. So like, to stop the horse shit and stop the victim mentality. It's really un-American to do it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, then the whole drug thing. I already know what they're doing with that. they're throwing out passive aggressive accusations and hoping that the people pick up on
But
it.
he is doing random urine.
He's already doing it. That's the thing. And then another hypocritical part about this is what Michael brought up is Floyd's whole thing was, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. I'm gonna fight in Nevada. It makes sense for me to fight there. It makes sense for Inoue to be fighting in Japan. Why has he got to come over here to prove a point? Fight
because he's already fought over here.
Yeah, and the thing is, we live in an era now where, quote unquote, foreign, I'm going to keep using it, foreign fighters. I hate using that term, but a lot of these foreign fighters make more money in their country than here. So some countries, it doesn't work that way. You're not going to make more money in the Ukraine than you are here, right? But Japan, Tokyo is the biggest market in the world. People think LA, New York. No, it's Tokyo. Tokyo is the #1 market in the world. He's the biggest star in Tokyo. He's the biggest sports star over there. He's making 8 figures. Why the hell would you come here and fight Gervonta Davis for peanuts? And now we sound like the LDBC guys, but honestly, Inoue's fought the top guys already. He's going to fight Topolis later this year and go undisputed in his second weight class within a year or two.
Yeah. But let me ask you guys this. Like, I honestly think this only happens, honestly, it only happens in boxing. In other sports, when a player or an athlete from another country is great, like he's acknowledged. Like Kirk Nowinski was acknowledged as a great basketball player, in my opinion.
Not right away.
Well, eventually he was, though, right?
He's still called slow and unathletic and this, that, the other. And there are a lot. How many people were clowning Jokic and saying he doesn't? I can't remember some of the names of these basketball players, but they were saying he's not that good.
Well, look, I don't watch basketball, so I can't comment too much.
I don't watch that much either.
But however,
yeah,
Otani gets a lot of praise because it's undeniable. Like he's amazing at bat. He's a great pitcher. Yeah. Like we haven't seen any shit like that in years in baseball, right? And he's acknowledged. And David and you could argue we have no choice, but they keep kicking our ass at baseball, so it is what it is. But but they acknowledge his greatness over there. Like you don't see like baseball legends like shitting on him. Like, oh, I think he needs to do some random testing, and that's not a thing.
You know, like you don't have the same insecurity. I just feel like there's a lot of insecurity on that particular particular umbrella of the boxing community, because it's not just PBC, it's Showtime, it's the YouTube channels, it's members of the media, it's all part of that apparatus. There's just a lot of insecurity over there, bro. I don't know how else to describe it. Am I missing something?
No, you're not.
And by the way, really quick, Floyd, you didn't invent the Philly shell. You didn't invent the jab, Floyd. You didn't invent the jab to the body, Floyd. You were still your daddy's nutsack. So when dudes were throwing jabs to the body, so you didn't invent these things. So just because a dude, and then Inoue doesn't even use the Philly shell. Well, why? Because some Floyd fans that never seen Inoue fight before saw him throw a jab to the body against Fulton, and the first thing in their mind was, oh, he's doing what Floyd does. Because all they've ever seen was Floyd and Ward and then Wilder. That's all they ever seen, right? And the first time they saw Inoue, because he was fighting an American fighter, right? Oh, look, and now Floyd's going along with it. Like, oh, yeah, he took stuff from my game. Like what? Dude fights nothing like Floyd Mayweather, bro. Nothing. I don't look at him and say, oh, shit, he's fighting like Floyd. Like it's not a thing to me. I'm sorry.
You're going to be in trouble now. Michael, I wanted to ask you this before you bounce. Real quick assessment of it. Valdez, Navarrete. Who you favoring in that fight? I love this matchup. God, I love this matchup. And I have my thoughts, pretty strong thoughts on who I think is going to win. But what's your assessment of it?
I keep going back and forth on it, man. I've gone back and forth a bunch of times. But this is the kind of matchup that diehard boxing fans love, right? Circling back to the very beginning of this conversation where I said, like, it's a few 100,000 of us that really care about this shit. Well, that's who's going to be watching this fight. It's, we're going to all be watching it. Here's what I look at. Navarrete is younger, taller, longer, probably fresher, right? I get all that. But I'm looking at who has fought the better opposition. And that's Valdez. Valdez had a really good amateur career. A lot of people don't know he had an extensive amateur career. He fought some good fighters in the amateurs. And then as a pro, he's fought some top-level opposition for years. Now he's struggled at times and things like that. I get it, but I just think that experience is going to push him through, and I like him to win this fight by decision.
Yep, good call, Michael. We appreciate you joining us. Like I said, man, we hope to have you on as much as possible in the future.
Absolutely, man.
You always have a voice here. Plug your stuff real quick. I'm pretty sure everybody knows where to find you, but if you want, plug your stuff before you bounce.
Yeah, I'm on all the social media, just at Montero Unboxing. And then I have a website, MonteroUnboxing.com. You can check that out too.
Appreciate you, Michael.
Thanks a lot, fellas.
God bless. Peace. That's Michael Montero. Appreciate him coming through. Let me fix this real quick. Let me see if I get this fixed. There we go. That's good enough, right? Good enough.
Becoming a pro now. Look at that. Pow.
Valdez Navarrete, D-style. Your quick assessment of it, because we're going to do more of this. I got the whole betting stuff I'm going to put out tomorrow.
I'm probably going to do a live tonight if I have time. It depends, but no promises, by the way. But
what are you thinking?
But I'll give you a quick breakdown on how I think this is going to go and what I've seen going, right? Right now, if I was like a betting, like if you ever follow like the stock market, you're just noticing like a stock's just not looking good. You're kind of seeing the writing on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Navarrete looks like to me right now.
Uh-oh.
Like I've been noticing, and we've been talking. Do you remember because this is not just something I just came up with, like since the bias fight, and we've done several shows since then. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give him a pass. Maybe he overlooked bias. Let's see, right? Because I'm a data guy. Let's see how you look in your next fight, right? That's why with Pro Grace, how it's one fight. Let's see how it looks in the next fight. We'll go from there.
And by the way, we both like Navarrete. We're both fans.
Yeah. Hoyt. I don't know. Hoyt. Like Hoyt's a good fighter, but Navarrete was supposed to work that dude, right? High guard, pressured him, waited for Navarrete to be first. And I've noticed when Navarrete is first, especially if you give yourself some space, when he's first, you could kind of navigate what he's doing, sort of, right? And he takes both his feet off the canvas so much, and I feel like Hoyt took advantage of that and started timing him. And Hoyt was just using very basic boxing to do it, but he was just patient, right? Now, Navarrete won the fight, but a lot of his punches, like he had a very low percentage landed. A lot of them were hitting the gloves. It was just not working for him. And the Liam Wilson fight, I say, you know what? Even though I made fun of the fight at first, I didn't know who Wilson was. Remember the whole Wilson thing?
Yeah.
But then I was watching film on Wilson, and I was like, yo, I think Navarrete is going to have his hands full in this fight. Now, I don't remember what your take was, to be honest with you. You'll have to refresh my memory. But I remember my team. I felt like he was going to give Navarrete all he could handle. I didn't count him out in that fight. And he did. Navarrete pulled every trick in the book from spitting out the mouthpiece. He was hurt. He looked in horrible shape. I honestly believe they fucked with the scale. Good luck doing that with Valdez, though. That ain't going to happen with that team, right? And he looked soft to the body. He was just like 3 fights in a row, he's looked human. And I think what happened, Calix, is he was so unorthodox for so long, right? And we see this in other sports. Like usually, you ever see a football team, they try some new stuff and it might work for the first game, second game, and then they're like, oh man, I think they came up with this unstoppable offense. Nobody's going to stop this. Then eventually they figure it out and it doesn't work anymore. And they got to go back to the basics, right? Go back to the fundamentals. And I feel like that's what happened with Navarrete. People have caught on. He is unorthodox, but when the unorthodox becomes predictable, it's no longer a good thing, right? And I think Valdez, he has enough data here. I'm looking at the trend. I think he's going to catch Navarrete lunging in. That's his only offense. He lunges in. That's how he fights, right? And I get that he's creative. I get that he does, and he's exciting to watch. I mean, I never seen a dude like like, I don't know, glide in air and land an uppercut, and then I just never seen it, like sideways, and it's crazy. So he might give Valdez some fits, but man, Valdez is gonna catch this dude with his toes off the canvas. He's gonna catch him several times. I don't think this fight goes long, bro. I think he's out in under 6. I think Valdez knocks him out. I think he's going to sleep. And look, Valdez has been frustrating me lately, but they haven't matched him with the Conceição, defensive dude, negative. Shakur, great fighter, but very elusive, right? Like very hard to hit. And then, of course, you got, what's his name? The dude he just fought. I forgot his name.
Lopez.
Yeah, Lopez. Very negative. I don't know. It's hard to look good against somebody like that. Navarrete is going to bring it to you. Navarrete knows how to fight one way. This unorthodox, I don't even know how to explain its style, right? And it's going to be exciting while it lasts. He's going to have some moments, but I believe he gets knocked out. And the odds are beautiful for knockout, by the way.
I love this matchup. Exciting, 2 exciting fighters. And it's one of those things we talk about, right? Like, to me, this fight here, I don't care who loses because I'll still be a fan after.
Of course,
there's a certain fight, like, especially with certain fighters. It's like this with everybody, but especially with certain fighters, they have value no matter how many losses they have, because they're going to be in fun, exciting fights with their style. And you should keep guys like that active, and you shouldn't be afraid to put them in fights. And I love this fight in particular. It's a collision course fight. And the reason I feel strongly Valdez wins by knockout here is Valdez, I think he's creative on how he loads up on shots. He knows when to load up on them. People are acting now. You were just talking about stocks. You can argue that both the stocks have come down a little bit as opposed to where they were a year or 2 ago, but I think for different reasons. Navarrete, I think he's looked flawed against opposition that he necessarily shouldn't have looked flawed against. With Valdez, it's more forgivable. Why? Because Conceição, nobody's going to look good. That dude he's a root canal of a style. Conceição. You don't want to fight Conceição. So they fight Conceição, and then they fight Shakur Stevenson. How in the hell do you look good against Conceição and Shakur Stevenson? So they didn't do him any favors as far as matchmaking, and he'll go in there and fight anybody. I got to give him credit for that. But his stock has come down for different reasons, I believe. I think the more true Valdez, the truer Valdez is the guy who wasn't in those fights. I think the closer Valdez is the guy who fought Burchelt, and this is more of that style matchup, right? A different Valdez is going to pop up depending on who he fights. And a guy like Navarrete who's coming forward and is going to be timed, I'm telling you, Valdez is going to load up on some beautiful shots on that. And I'm not saying Navarrete is going to have his moments too, because he's going to land some hellacious shots on Valdez. But I'm just telling you, Valdez knows how to time those shots, and he's going to time Navarrete as the fight goes on. And that's when it's going to get interesting, right? Because Navarrete sort of gets going, right? And he starts to walk through shots, and then it becomes a nightmare. But to your point, maybe it happens early before he can get going. Maybe the shots that Wilson was catching him with early in the fight, Valdez catches them with the same shots, and the shots are different from Valdez. They are different.
When Valdez said he wanted this fight, he said, hey, we need to fight because we need the Barrera Morales of this generation. Look, I'm a fight fan, bro. So if it turns out to be the Barrera Morales, I'm all in. You know what I mean? I'll be the happiest dude. I'll be like, holy shit, this is great. But I think Valdez will knock him out, but I will say this though. I'm not going to say this is the same thing as Burchelt. Burchelt is a different fighter than Navarrete. He's just a lot more unorthodox. But Burchelt will square up in his own way, obviously. But where you do have a point is this. If you think about it, almost everything that Joet landed on Navarrete, almost everything Liam Wilson landed on Navarrete, they had time to load up on their punches, right? And you don't want to get hit with one of those by Valdez.
No,
If you give Valdez time to, and that was one of the reasons I thought he wasn't going to beat Shakur, because like Shakur was going to catch on to that. Like you have to load up on your shot. By the time you do that, Shakur's not there no more, right? Or he sees it coming, he could just barely make you miss, whatever it is. But let me tell you something, man. Even Shakur said this. Valdez caught me with a really good body shot, and I had to keep a poker face so he didn't realize he hurt me, right? If he caught Stevenson with a good shot, you don't think he's going to catch that long torso of Navarrete, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, a Navarrete who tends to, he throws punches, and this is why I picked Ruben Villa to beat him, which I was wrong about. So I could be wrong about this one, Alex, right? I picked Ruben Villa, all right, to beat Navarrete. Because I thought, well, Ruben Villa's going to catch on to this stuff. Like the guy, have you noticed Navarrete throws punches and they're crossed? Like when he misses punches, his arms like cross over his body, bro. Like he's out of position. And no one, but then he does like weird movements where like he makes it work somehow, right? And that's what he did. That's what he did in the Ruben Villa fight. And I have not given up on Ruben Villa, by the way. Look out for Ruben Villa. He has a win over Venal Lopez, so he's a real deal, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big underrated win by Valdez. I'm sorry, by Navarrete. But I'm telling you right now, I believe that Valdez going to have time to load up on his shots, right? And I just like now he's proven to have a good chance. He's going to take a couple of them, right? But how many of them can he take? Like at what point? You know? And this is the fight, Calix, where all the things I've been frustrated with Valdez about, like why didn't he throw more? Well, why doesn't he like mix up some combinations in there? Like that's actually what you don't want to do with Navarrete. You know what I mean? Like so it's like perfect for him. It's like the perfect storm. It's the perfect style for him. I know there's a lot of people out there that think there's going to be a war. I hope so, but I don't see it, man. I just don't see it.
So you're all Valdez here. And here's another good.
Nando
here's another good thing about
pillow fisted. Come on, Nando. Look what's up.
This is another good thing that's undervalued about this fight is they're both active. It's been 3 months since Valdez fought, 6 months since Navarrete fought. So they're both going to be in a rhythm pretty quick. But I think Valdez is going to come out quicker. And Navarrete is going to have a little tougher time to get going. I love this matchup.
Navarrete could hurt Valdez?
I do. I think
people have forgotten that he could hurt guys. Like, but
I just think
130 though.
I think people are particularly undervaluing where Valdez is currently as a fighter. I think you can still make the argument that he's the second best fighter at 130 at that time behind Shakur Stevenson. You can make the argument maybe he's the guy now. He still could pull that off. And I just think people are sleeping right now. And Navarrete could be sleeping on Saturday night.
By the way, if you guys are going to bet Valdez by stoppage, do it now. Because I have a feeling it's going to go down, bro. Like, closer to the fight. Because so many people are predicting Valdez by knockout. And there's going to be a pattern. Like, people are going to start betting that.
Yeah.
Like, I think the bookies had it too wide from the beginning.
And I don't want this to sound like we're hating on Navarrete or something like that, because that's not the case. We both love what's going on with that guy. I just think it's a matchup thing. Valdez loads up on some hellacious shots, man. He just knows how to do it. And I think Navarrete is going to walk into some pretty bad shots in this fight. And
let me tell you what's possible. It is possible that Navarrete just, he just didn't take those guys serious. He probably thought what I thought. I had this dude from Australia. What the hell is this dude going to do to me? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Come on, bias. I don't want to be biased, but, you know what I mean? But like, Hoet, I'll take care of that dude, no problem. Like, so it's possible he could be like, oh, well, I got to get up for this one, right? It's possible. Remember, Morales was expected to destroy Barrera. He was expected to, right? Barrera, like, he didn't have some good performances right before that, but he got up for that one. And there was an old saying, right? Barrera actually said this. He said, I can live with a loss against anybody else, but not against Morales, right? So now, but there's a big difference. These guys aren't beefing. They don't beef here. They don't hate each other. Like if they shove each other at the press conference, it's gonna look so fake. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like there's no real like beef like that. You know what I mean? You know, look, man, this will not be Barrera Morales all over again. I hope I'm wrong because I would love that, right?
Me too.
But it's not.
Me too. I bet on Valdez plus 420 knockout. I wouldn't mind if it turns into a great, hellacious 12-round fight. I just wouldn't. On that note, we're going to catch y'all another day. I am out. D-Style Boxing, Cali X Boxing. We're out of here. Thanks for joining us. God bless. Peace.